Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. It's a beautiful day out here. Thought it was going to go the other way this morning for a few minutes. I got out here early, about 5:45, 6, give or take. And it was real quiet out here. A little bit of a north wind this morning. Oh, I'd say somewhere in the 5 to 6 neighborhood. Just enough for a ripple and a little bit of a drift first thing, but we don't get a north wind very often. Certainly not during the summertime. So didn't do anything for me this morning, but it was fun to go and drift a different direction, I guess. I went looking. I was going to go fish shallow. It's what I've done all day. I fished shallow. I have fished throughout the week when I've been able to get out. This week of weather has been a little weird, and it's thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of people's fishing, not just on Oneida Lake, Lake Ontario as well. You know, in the peak of salmon season right now, they just got a week of weather that really kind of screwed these fish up and put them off, and they'll regroup, and they still got to go, just like these fish will regroup, and they got to keep feeding, and the fall's coming, and they know all that. But there's some challenges right now for the people fishing in Oneida Lake. Some of the challenges that I'm feeling, obviously everybody else will be feeling as well. There is an absolute unbelievable amount of green vegetation everywhere in the water column and on the surface. So I don't care if you're trolling, drifting, jigging, casting, bass, walleye, whatever you're fishing for, you're pulling weeds, your stuff's getting fouled every single cast, every cast. And sometimes within the first crank or two. You just got to, what are you going to do? If you want to be out here fishing like me, it wants to frustrate me, but I'm like, okay, I'm choosing to be here. I'm going to be patient and oh yeah, I feel like Ace Ventura right there. A lot of debris in the water, and we've had a week of unsettled weather, and everything we talk about here is positive. So I went shallow, thinking shallow fish are more apt to be feeding, especially sight feeding. I was in the shallows. I was throwing my version of a marabou jig, the little finesse jigs, like a fighter fly. Mine was tied in chartreuse because that's what I had. I had chartreuse and pink because they were leftover steelhead jigs. But they had a nice, good marabou tail on it, so I just slow, straight cranked them. I caught a nice perch doing that, and no smallmouth. And then I went back through that same area with just a Kitech swim bait, because that's really my ultimate confidence bait, and nothing. So I moved a little farther off the end of the point, and I switched over to one of those Mega Bass, Oka Shiri, something along those lines. I'm sorry to mispronounce it. But it's got the propeller blade on it like a spin bait or a spy bait. So I rigged that with another Kitech 3.8 swing impact, the thin one. On there, and boom, I have one just throttle at about the third cast, and he come right to the surface and then went back down. Of course, I'm only in 6 foot of water. I just assume he's really, really fighting and dogging it, and I'm like, man, I love the way those smallmouth fight. He comes up, it's a big walleye. I'm like, oh, right on, you fooled me. You fooled me, and I thought I knew before seeing it, and he was in there. So I was going to fish shallow. In my mind, I was really looking for smallmouth, but I knew full well that I could just as easily catch walleye in there, because those walleyes are shallow too, some of them. So anyways, I did that, and that's all I did this morning. And after that walleye, I fished 4 more spots in the same scenarios. Now we have a nice high braid sun, but that doesn't really matter either. Especially for shallow fishing. A lot of guys go right out to the depths as soon as that sun gets high, but the bass and the walleye both are in those weed beds every day of their life. The fact that the sun's high in the sky doesn't affect their desire to feed, especially if you present something right over the top of those weeds or right along the edge. Now, here's the question of the day. If you've watched this far, and you're going to comment below, here's the question of the day. So let's say you had a round island, and the weed beds went evenly all the way out to 12 foot of water, and it went all the way around that round island. How would you fish that weed edge? Would you Would you get to where you positioned and fish parallel to it? Or would you fish perpendicular to it, thinking that the fish are traveling that outside edge, which would put them parallel to you? So do you think that you're better off presenting something with a side profile, fleeing, or coming at? Comment below. Thanks for everything. Have a great Saturday. Keep your tip up.